Welcome to the GameRamble video review for Caladrius Blaze, narrated by me, Darkloud. As always, the full text version of this review can be found on the GameRamble website linked below. The TLDR for Caladrius Blaze is that you get to take to the skies as one of 8 different characters and blast your enemies to bits in this vertically scrolling shooter. It is heavy on fan service and the visuals have not aged as well as we would have liked, but in terms of gameplay, Caladrius Blaze is still a very solid shooter. There's plenty of modes as well as an adjustable challenge that makes it accessible to players of all skill levels. The game does have a couple of issues, so make sure you know about these before purchasing. Gameplay receives a 9 out of 10. The game can be as challenging as you want it to be and is quite addictive to boot. Graphics receives an 8 out of 10. Nice character designs and plenty of fan service, but the 3D textures really show their age. Sound receives a 9 out of 10. The audio features Japanese voiceovers and some nice background tunes. The overall score for Caladrius Blaze is 8.7 out of 10. And now for the full review. Graham, the 12th king of the Baladin kingdom, used to be a benevolent ruler until betrayal by vassals from his late father's reign left him without his wife and child. This prompts the grief-struck Graham to believe that it was his own weakness that resulted in his terrible loss. Things take an even darker turn when Graham turns to the use of forbidden spells to gain more power, plunging the kingdom into despair and darkness. The task of bringing down Graham and ending the madness now rests in the hands of 8 different people who, for their own reasons, have their scores to settle with the king. Caladrius Blaze is a vertically scrolling shooter from Moss Company, the developer who also worked on Raiden 3 and 4. Players get to choose from 8 different characters, each with their own special ship and unique elemental attacks. These elemental attacks set Caladrius Blaze apart from the competition and make the game so much fun to play. Unlike your primary firing mode, the 3 elemental attacks have gauges that deplete as you fire them. These gauges slowly replenish, but you must cycle between them before they are fully depleted to keep your multiplier gauge up. This gauge influences your score and resets if you lose a life or destroy enemies with your primary weapon, so careful weapon management is required for the big scores. After completing a level, you can upgrade your shot types to make them even more effective. Obviously, you can ignore all of this and just blast everything that moves with whatever weapon you fancy, but the elemental attacks add some depth to the game. The other thing that Caladrius Blaze does a little differently is its chain break mechanic. This basically means that the characters are prone to losing their clothes if they take damage. Since most of the characters, including the bosses, are anime girls, this means that the game is packed with plenty of fan service. While the images are not exactly safe for work, there isn't any actual nudity, although thanks to some strategically placed shreds of fabric, it is probably as close as you can get. This feature is understandably not something everyone will appreciate, so there is thankfully the option to disable these images. On the other hand, for those who appreciate this kind of thing, there's also a gallery section where you can admire the artwork without the stress of dodging bullets. Caladrius Blaze is pretty accommodating to newcomers as far as bullet hell shooters go. In addition to the original mode, the game also includes Arcade and Evolution, which adds a couple of special stages. Evolution also features an additional stage complete with a brand new boss. These modes make some changes to how your special attacks work, so they are worth checking out. Caladrius Blaze also features a host of difficulty settings, making it accessible to players of all skill levels. The pros can jump straight into the hardest mode for a real challenge, while newcomers can try the easier ones. There's even a practice mode that eliminates all enemy bullets, and if this is still too hard, you can enable no damage to prevent all damage to your craft. These modes allow for learning the ropes and seeing the levels without frustration. You can adjust the number of lives and bombs your character has from 1 to 5, although you will have to play with the default settings if you want a shot at the leaderboards. Finally, you basically have infinite continues, so completing the game shouldn't be an issue. However, if you want to see the hidden final level and boss, you must reach it with 1 credit, which takes some practice. Since Caladrius Blaze has a story mode, it is actually quite fun to play through it with the different characters to see their conversations with the bosses. Each character also has their own ending, and everything is tracked in the gallery mode, where you can view profiles, conversations and more. The English translation could have been a little better, but nothing was too horrible. Players who tire of the story mode will also appreciate the boss rush mode and score attack mode, which can be unlocked. In terms of visuals, Caladrius Blaze is a mixed bag. The 2D sprites look great, but the game uses 3D models for the actual game. The bosses still look impressive, but the backgrounds look bland and dated, thanks to some rather low resolution textures. It also doesn't help that the game only runs in 720p, and your only visual options are playing the game in windowed or full screen mode. The actual 3D isn't too bad, as it gives some nice depth to the backgrounds, and allow for neat tricks like the camera rotating around objects like towers while you fly. This doesn't influence the gameplay in any way though, as the movement of your craft is strictly on a 2D plane. The game sounds exactly like you would expect a Japanese bullet hell shooter to sound, so you can expect plenty of explosions and high-pitched yelps from the characters. All the voices in the game are in Japanese, but the music, sound effects and voice volume can be adjusted independently, so you can customize everything to your taste. The actual music is good, but can be drowned out by all the voices and sound effects. To play Caladrius Blaze, you will ideally want a suitable controller, as using a keyboard is a bit of a chore. The game also features a 2-player co-op mode, so grab a controller for a friend while you're at it. Using a controller simply makes it easier to keep track of the 4 different attack and 2 special buttons. Overall, we had a blast with Caladrius Blaze, but there's no denying that this is not the type of game that will appeal to everyone. If you're a bullet hell shooter fan, this one is highly recommended, especially if you want one accessible to newcomers or playable in co-op. The excessive fan service might deter some players, but you can disable this feature, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. The low resolution is a bit of a bummer, especially for players with large, high-definition screens. Finally, the Steam version of the game features some nice achievements, but comes at the cost of only being playable online, so if that's an issue, it's better to opt for the GOG version. All things considered, Caladrius Blaze is a fun game that offers plenty of value for money, but make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Thanks for joining me for this Caladrius Blaze PC review. Remember to like, subscribe and share. Until next time.